The sun poured into my kitchen, bright and warm, but I felt cold inside. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee when my phone buzzed on the counter. I picked it up, expecting a message from Leora or maybe Ethan, but what I saw made my heart drop. I saw Leora and Ethan together. They are having an affair. The words blurred before my eyes as I read them again, hoping it was just a cruel joke. The vibrant sunlight seemed to mock me, brightening the room while darkness crept into my heart. How could this happen? My mind raced, filled with memories of laughter we shared, dreams we planned, and the bond I thought was unbreakable. I remembered our late-night talks, the endless cups of tea, and how Leora always knew how to make me smile. Now, those memories felt tainted, like a beautiful painting splattered with dark paint. I gripped the edge of the counter, my heart pounding against my chest. I could not just sit here and let the storm of betrayal wash over me. I had to confront Leora. The thought of facing her sent a wave of panic through me. Would I break down? Would she deny it? No matter what, I had to know the truth. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "Clara, you can do this," I whispered to myself, though the words felt hollow. I glanced out the window, watching the world go by, oblivious to my pain. Could they feel the weight of my heartache? Did anyone see the cracks forming in my world? I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside, the fresh air biting against my skin. Each step felt heavier as I made my way to Leora's apartment. What would I say? Would I scream? Would I cry? The possibilities twisted in my stomach, making me feel sick. As I approached her door, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knocker. What if I was wrong? What if this was all a misunderstanding? But the message echoed in my mind, taunting me. I knocked, the sound sharp in the silence of the hallway. After a moment, Leora opened the door. Her eyes widened in surprise, but I couldn't focus on her expression. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground was crumbling beneath me. "Clara?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Leora, we need to talk," I said, forcing the words out through the lump in my throat. I stepped inside, the familiar smell of her home wrapping around me like a warm blanket. But it only made the chill in my heart grow stronger. "What's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing. I could see the worry etched on her face, but I couldn't let it sway me. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" My voice was steadier than I felt, but the look in her eyes told me she understood. "What do you mean?" she replied, her voice trembling slightly. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my emotions pressing down on me. "About you and Ethan. The affair." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. Her face fell, and for a moment I saw a flicker of regret. "Clara, No!" I interrupted, my heart racing. "I want to know why. I want to know how you could do this to me." Tears began to form in her eyes, and I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by my anger. "You were my best friend, Leora. How could you betray me like this?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice breaking. "I was lost, Clara. I needed something." Her words stirred a mixture of emotions within me. I wanted to hate her, to scream and shout, but beneath the hurt was a flicker of understanding. "You needed something?" I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. "And you thought sleeping with my husband was the answer?" The sunlight outside dimmed, casting shadows across the room as I stood there, processing her confession. My heart ached, but I knew I had to hear her out. I had to know the truth, even if it meant breaking my heart further. "Tell me everything," I demanded, feeling the weight of my own pain settle in my chest. I was ready to confront the truth, no matter how shattering it might be. I sat at our favorite cafe, a small place with worn wooden tables and the aroma of fresh coffee filling the air. This cafe had always been a sanctuary for Leora and me, a space where we shared dreams and secrets. But today, it felt different, heavy with tension and unspoken words. I fidgeted with my cup, the warmth of the coffee doing little to soothe the cold dread in my stomach. When I saw Leora walk in, her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The laughter we used to share felt like a distant memory, and the weight of betrayal hung between us like a thick fog. "Leora," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then walked over, her steps slow and uncertain. "Clara," she replied, her voice trembling. We stood there for a moment, both unsure of what to say. I could see the guilt etched on her face, and it only fueled the anger bubbling inside me. "Why?" I demanded, the word bursting out before I could stop it. "How could you do this to me? To us?" My heart raced as I spoke, each word slicing through the silence. Tears spilled down Leora's cheeks. "I never meant to hurt you, Clara. I was lost." She wiped her eyes, looking up at me with a mix of fear and regret. "I didn't know how to handle my feelings. Ethan, it just happened." "Just happened?" I scoffed, my voice rising. "You think that makes it okay? You were my best friend. We shared everything." The hurt twisted in my chest, and I felt like I was about to explode. "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I messed up. I thought I could find something I was missing, but I lost everything instead." She looked down at her hands, shaking slightly. "Do you even realize how much this hurts?" I asked, my voice softer now, but still laced with pain. "I trusted you, Leora. I confided in you about everything, and you betrayed that trust." "I didn't know how to talk to you about it," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I felt so lonely, so unworthy. When Ethan showed me attention, I got caught up in it. I thought it would make me feel better, but it only made things worse." I took a step back, overwhelmed by her words. I had always seen Leora as strong and confident, someone who had it all together. Now I realized she was just as human as I was, struggling with her own demons. But that didn't erase the betrayal. "You could have come to me," I said, my voice shaking. "You could have told me how you felt. Instead, you chose to hide it behind my back." "I know," she cried, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I was scared. I didn't want to lose you, but I also didn't want to face my own feelings. I thought I could handle it alone." The tension in the cafe felt suffocating, and I could feel the eyes of other customers on us. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to let out all the hurt and betrayal swirling inside me. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't help. As I looked into Leora's eyes, I saw the pain reflected back at me. I was torn between wanting to hurt her for what she had done and feeling a strange sense of empathy for her struggles. Was it possible to feel both? "I don't know if I can forgive you, Leora," I finally said, my voice heavy with emotion. "This changes everything between us." "I understand," she whispered, looking defeated. I'm so sorry, Clara. I wish I could take it all back." The weight of our conversation settled heavily on my shoulders. My heart ached, not only for the betrayal, but for the friendship that felt like it was slipping away. I didn't want to lose her, but I also couldn't ignore the hurt. "I need time," I said finally, standing up. "I need to figure out how I feel about all of this." Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked away, feeling the tears prick my eyes. The cafe, once a place of comfort, had become a battlefield of emotions, and I didn't know how to navigate the aftermath. As I stood in my room, my heart felt heavy in my chest. I had just returned from my meeting with Leora, and the weight of our conversation lingered in the air. I needed answers, but I didn't know where to find them. As I paced back and forth, my eyes caught a glimpse of Leora's diary hidden in the corner of my bookshelf. It was an old, worn-out journal, its pages filled with her handwriting. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should invade her privacy. But the pain of betrayal was too strong. I grabbed the diary and sat down on my bed. The sunlight streamed through the window, warming my skin, but inside I felt cold. I opened the diary, and the first page was filled with Leora's neat, swirling script. "Dear Diary," it began, "I feel so lost. Sometimes I wonder if anyone really sees me." My heart sank. Her words echoed my own feelings of confusion and loneliness. I continued reading, each entry revealing more about her struggles. "I feel like I'm not enough," she wrote one day. "Ethan makes me feel special, even if it's just for a moment." I felt a sharp pang in my chest. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about her pain. Leora had been searching for something, and I suddenly realized how deep her loneliness ran. As I read on, the entries spoke of insecurities, fears, and dreams she felt she could never achieve. "I wish I could be brave," she wrote. "I wish I could tell Clara everything." My throat tightened. She had always been so strong in front of me. I never knew she felt this way. I flipped through the pages, feeling the weight of her unspoken wishes. I found an entry that hit me hard. "Sometimes I feel like I am drowning, and Ethan is my only lifeline." I closed my eyes, trying to process it all. Leora had turned to Ethan not just for love, but for validation. She was lost, just as I was. This new perspective twisted inside me, sparking a conflict I hadn't expected. My anger towards Leora began to blur. Could I still feel rage towards someone who was hurting so deeply? I found myself grappling with the idea of revenge. Was it fair to seek vengeance when she was struggling with her own demons? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my emotions. I realized I needed to confront Ethan. He was part of this tangled web, and I had to understand his role in all of this. I couldn't let my anger consume me. I needed clarity. I decided to reach out to him. "I need to talk," I texted, my fingers trembling on the screen. I waited, my heart racing, until he replied, "Where?" "Let's meet at the park," I typed back. It was a place filled with memories, where we had shared laughter and dreams. Now it felt like the perfect spot for a confrontation. The next day I arrived at the park, the sunlight filtering through the leaves. It was beautiful, yet my heart was heavy. I spotted Ethan sitting on a bench, his head lowered. When I approached, he looked up, and his expression was one of surprise and guilt. "Clara," he said softly. "Ethan," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk about Leora." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, I messed up. I never meant to hurt you." I crossed my arms, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "How could you do this? How could you betray our friendship?" "I was lost," he admitted. "I didn't know how to deal with my own issues. And then Leora, she just understood me in a way I didn't expect." His words hit me like a punch. "So, you used her to escape?" "I didn't see it that way at first," he said, his voice trembling. "But I realize now that I hurt both of you." I looked away, trying to process his confession. "Do you even care about what this has done to me?" "Of course I do," he replied urgently. "I care more than you know, but I was selfish. I thought I could find happiness, but I only made things worse." Silence hung between us, filled with unspoken pain. I could see the regret in his eyes, and it softened my anger just a bit. "Ethan, I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally, "but I need to understand." His gaze dropped to the ground. "I get it. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope one day you can find a way to move past this." As I walked away from that conversation, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I was still hurt, but I also felt a flicker of understanding. Maybe, just maybe, This tangled web of betrayal was more complicated than I had thought. I took a deep breath, determined to find clarity. I needed to confront my feelings, not just about Leora and Ethan, but about myself. I had to figure out what I wanted, separate from the mess they had created. I arrived at the park feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. This was the same place where Ethan and I had shared so many happy moments, laughing and dreaming about our future together. Now it felt like a place of shadows and pain. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself as I remembered the laughter that had once filled the air. Ethan was already there, sitting on a bench. His head was down, and he looked lost. I approached slowly, my heart racing. "Ethan!" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, surprise washing over his face. "Clara," he said, his voice trembling. "I didn't think you would come." "I had to," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "We need to talk." He nodded and motioned for me to sit. As I sat down, I felt a mix of anger and sadness swirling inside me. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I asked, my voice quivering. "You betrayed me in the worst way possible." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, Clara, I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Didn't mean to?" I echoed, my frustration bubbling over. "You chose to be with Leora. How can you say you didn't mean to hurt me?" He lowered his gaze, shame written all over his face. "I was lost, Clara. I thought I could find something in Leora that I felt I was missing. I didn't know how to talk to you about what I was feeling." I felt a pang of empathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by the hurt. "What were you feeling? You could have come to me. We could have worked through it together." Ethan looked up, tears brimming in his eyes. "I was afraid of losing you, afraid of facing my own failures. I thought being with Leora would fill the emptiness inside me." "Did it?" I asked, my heart aching for him, even though I was still so angry. "Did it make you feel better?" He shook his head, a single tear rolling down his cheek. "No, it didn't. It just made everything worse. I realize now that I was running away from the problem instead of facing it." I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "So what do we do now? Can we even fix this?" Ethan looked pained. "I don't know, Clara. I want to make things right, but I don't know how." His vulnerability struck a chord within me. Despite everything that had happened, I could see that he was suffering too. "You need to understand that your choices affected not just me, but also Leora. She's hurting as much as we are." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I hate what I did to both of you. I wish I could take it back." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words and shared pain. "Ethan," I finally said, my voice softer, "do you think we can forgive each other? Is that even possible?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with hope and fear. "I want to believe it is. I want to work on myself, to be a better person, but I don't want to rush you." I nodded slowly, feeling a flicker of understanding. Maybe forgiveness is a journey for both of us. It won't be easy, but we can start by being honest. Ethan reached for my hand, hesitating before he spoke. "I promise to be honest with you from now on. No more lies, no more running away." I squeezed his hand, feeling a strange mix of sorrow and relief. "I need time, Ethan, but I appreciate your honesty. That's a start." As we sat in that park, surrounded by the echoes of our past, I felt a shift inside me. I realized that true liberation does not come from revenge or anger, but from understanding. We were both human, both flawed, both seeking something more. "Let's take this one step at a time," I said finally. "Together." Ethan nodded, a small smile breaking through his tears. Together. And in that moment, I knew that while the path ahead would be difficult, it was a path worth walking. After the confrontations with Leora and Ethan, I felt a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. I knew that I needed to start a journey of self-discovery, one that would help me understand who I was outside of my relationships with them. I sat on my bed, staring at the walls that had seen so much joy and pain. What do I truly want? I whispered to myself, feeling the weight of the questions settle in my heart. I began to reflect on my needs and desires, thinking about the things I had set aside during my marriage. I remembered how much I loved painting. It used to bring me so much joy. With a deep breath, I decided it was time to pick up my paintbrush again. I headed to the local art supply store, the familiar smell of paint and canvas welcoming me like an old friend. "Can I help you find something?" the store clerk asked, her smile warm and inviting. "I need some supplies," I replied, my voice steady. "I want to start painting again." As I selected brushes and colors, I felt a spark of excitement. I was reclaiming a part of myself that had been lost. I could hardly wait to get home and let my emotions flow onto the canvas. In the following weeks, I dedicated time to self-care. I reconnected with friends I had neglected. One afternoon, I met my old friend Maya for coffee. "You seem different," she said, looking at me with curiosity. "What's changed?" "I'm trying to find myself again," I said, my voice filled with hope. I realized I had forgotten what I loved. Maya smiled, her eyes bright. "That's great. You deserve to be happy, Clara." I started attending a support group for those who had faced betrayal. The first meeting was nerve-wracking. I sat in a circle of strangers, my heart pounding. "Welcome, everyone," the facilitator said gently. "This is a safe space to share your feelings." As others spoke about their pain, I felt a connection. One woman shared her story of heartbreak, and I could see the tears in her eyes. "I thought I would never heal," she said, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath and decided to share my story. "I found out my best friend was having an affair with my husband," I said, my voice shaking. It hurt so much. I felt alone and angry. When I finished, I looked around the room. I saw nods of understanding and compassion. "I understand how you feel," another member said. "I thought I lost everything too, but you can rebuild." Their support helped me express my pain. I learned that it was okay to feel hurt, but I didn't have to let anger consume me. As the weeks passed, I started to feel lighter. I let go of the anger that had weighed me down. One day, while painting, I realized that my worth was not defined by Ethan or Leora. I was my own person, capable of love and happiness. "You're getting better," I said aloud, as I stood back to admire my work, a vibrant sunset that reflected my journey. I felt proud of what I had created, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. In my heart, I knew I was healing. I was learning to forgive. Not just Leora and Ethan, but myself as well. I started to understand that everyone makes mistakes. It didn't make their actions right, but it did help me find peace. One night, as I prepared for bed, I looked in the mirror. "You are strong, Clara," I whispered to myself. "You will get through this." With each passing day, I felt more empowered. I was not just a victim of betrayal. I was a survivor. I was ready to embrace life again, to fill my days with joy and creativity. As I closed my eyes, I dreamed of a future where I could love and be loved, free from the shadows of the past. I had a long way to go, but I felt hopeful. The path ahead was mine to create, and I was ready to step into the light. The sun shone brightly as I stood outside the cafe, the place where Leora and I had shared so many laughs and dreams. Today, however, the air felt heavy with anticipation. I was about to confront both Leora and Ethan, not for revenge, but for closure. I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs, and stepped inside. Leora was already seated at our usual table, her eyes red and puffy from crying. When she saw me, a mix of relief and fear crossed her face. "Clara, I didn't think you would come," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I almost didn't," I admitted, pulling out a chair and sitting down across from her. "But I need to talk to you. To both of you." As I spoke, I felt the weight of the past weeks pressing down on me. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I continued. "I've started to understand what happened, and I want us to find some kind of closure." Leora nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Clara. I never meant to hurt you. I felt lost and I made terrible choices." I could see the regret etched in her face, and for a moment I felt a flicker of empathy. "I know you were struggling, Leora, but that doesn't change how much your actions hurt me," I said, my voice steady. "I trusted you. You were my best friend." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I wish I could take it all back. I never wanted to lose you." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history hanging in the air. I thought about the laughter, the secrets, and the dreams we had built together. They felt like distant memories now, overshadowed by the betrayal. But today, I wanted to reclaim a part of that. I took a breath, steadying myself. I've spent so much time feeling angry and hurt, but holding on to that anger is only hurting me more. I paused, looking deep into her eyes. "I want to forgive you, Leora. I want to move forward." Her face lit up with a mix of hope and disbelief. "You mean it? You really want to forgive me?" "Yes," I replied, feeling a sense of release wash over me. "But it's also about you finding forgiveness for yourself. You need to confront your own truths." Leora nodded, wiping her tears. "I know. I've been running away from my own mistakes for too long." Just then, Ethan walked in. My heart raced as I saw him approach our table. I had to remind myself of why I was here. This was about healing. "Clara," he said, his voice hesitant, "I didn't expect to see you here." I gestured for him to sit. "We need to talk, Ethan." He took a seat, his expression serious. "I know I've messed up. I never wanted to hurt you, Clara. I was lost in my own insecurities." He looked down, shame washing over his face. "I didn't think about how my actions would impact you." "You need to understand how much your choices affected me," I said firmly. "It's not just about what happened between you and Leora. It's about the trust we had." "I know," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been thinking about everything. I've hurt two people I care about deeply." I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "Ethan, I want to forgive you too. But you need to confront your own truths, just as Leora needs to. We all have our struggles, our fears." Ethan nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "I want to change. I want to be better." Looking at both of them, I felt a sense of strength rising within me. Forgiveness isn't easy, but it's necessary for all of us to heal. I'm choosing to release the past instead of being bound by it. As I spoke those words, I felt lighter. I was no longer just Clara, the woman betrayed. I was Clara, the woman choosing freedom and forgiveness. We sat together in silence for a while, the weight of our shared pain slowly transforming into a sense of understanding. I could feel the beginnings of healing, not just for myself, but for all of us. I stood up, looking at both of them. "This is a new chapter for me. I hope you both find the same strength to grow." As I walked away from the cafe, I felt empowered. I was stepping into a new phase of my life, one where I celebrated my resilience and embraced the power of forgiveness. I understood now that true healing comes from within, and I was ready to let go and move forward. Share this story if you believe that forgiveness can pave the way for healing and growth. Leave a comment about a time when you chose to forgive someone and how it changed your life. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.